China's military is still a fraction of the capabilities of the US. They're watching what's happening in Venezuela, in Iran. They don't have that capacity. They're not close. They're building their nuclear weapons out. They're building their conventional weapons out. They have never fought a naval war. It's decades since they fought a ground war. They're not capable of doing these things.
So is there any concern with China?
Yes.
What is that concern?
The concern with China is that the world-changing new technologies out there, the Chinese are investing at scale. And the Chinese are now either at parity or ahead of the Americans and everyone else by a long margin in many of the core technologies that matter most in the world.
And what does that potentially mean that is worth paying attention to? Why does that matter?
It means that they can set the rules. They can set the standards. They can sell the products that you need them, that if they determine that they're going to shut you off, you're dead, right? I mean, think about what happened. The Europeans were so dependent on Russia for gas and for oil. And the Russians invade Ukraine, they want to shut it down, and it destroys the European economy. The Americans are doing just fine. The Americans are building and get so many of their semiconductors from TSMC in Taiwan. I'm sure you've talked about that before in your show. Well, what happens if China decides that they want to cut that off? If they have that capacity, the Americans are really screwed. So you don't want to be in a position where one country, an adversarial country that you don't trust, have a good relationship with, suddenly produces all this stuff that you desperately need, or your economy will fall apart. And yet that is the trajectory we're presently on. See, if China had elections coming up in November, I'd be worried, right? Because, you can just imagine a situation where the Chinese, being more short-term, would say, well, look, the Americans are distracted with Iran and the Europeans are distracted with Ukraine. Now is our time for Taiwan because we really want to get all that support. So let's gin it up. Chinese aren't doing short-term at all. They're doing long-term. The Chinese are thinking for 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, and they're investing that way. They're taking very little risk. They're making no regret moves to set themselves up long-term, while the Americans are doing all this short-term stuff, all this electoral cycle stuff. That's the worry. If the Americans, the biggest danger to the United States is not China. It's America. It's America getting in its own way and not investing in having the best products, the most competitiveness, the most attractive place to study, the most attractive place to live, the most attractive place to work.
This has had probably the single biggest impact on my office. Of all the products that I've tried that have given me productivity gains or cognitive boosts, I would say that exogenous ketones are in the top 3 most pivotal things that have given me a massive productivity gain. It's some Stanford graduates that have been able to basically bottle up the effect you get from being in a ketogenic diet in a small shot that you can take that makes you feel incredibly focused and gives your brain an incredible source of energy. And the clinical studies that have been done on exogenous ketones have absolutely blown my mind. I reached out to them. I became a co-owner in the company. I became an investor in the company. And so it's with great pride that I can tell you that this exists. If you haven't tried these shots, go to ketone.com/Stephen for 30% off your subscription order. And you'll also get a free gift with your second shipment. I still buy my ketone shots predominantly online, but thankfully I can now grab them at Target whenever I drive past them here in the United States as well, because we're now stocked in Target, where your first shot is completely free. I'm 100% more productive using this app, despite spending 50% less time typing. And that might confuse you, but let me explain, which is exactly why I invested in Whisper Flow. They're also one of our sponsors on this podcast. Whisper Flow turns your speech into text, so you can send it in any app or device at any time. And I promise you, it doesn't seem to ever make mistakes. This is the most accurate voice dictation I have ever used after a decade of trying to get one to work. Not only does it save me a ton of time, it also corrects your speech if you change your mind mid-sentence before turning it into text on the device. I love it, and I know my team loves it too, because when I posted it in our Slack channel asking if anybody wanted a pro version, half the office said yes, and they had it within an hour, which tells me everything. This is the tool you and your team need to speed yourselves up and to capture those important ideas so that they don't disappear. Head over to whisperflow.ai/Stephen to download it now. That's whisperflow.ai/Stephen. You did a TED Talk 2 years ago in June. It was published in June 14th, 2023, and it's done tens of millions of views on YouTube. It is titled, "The Next Global Superpower
is Not Who You Think." Yeah.
And I was looking at the comment section earlier, and some of the top comments are, You called it a year ago and you were 100% right. There's another one here saying, hello, writing to you from a year in the future. I have some bad news about 2025. You were right. What were you right about?
I guess what they're saying, you and I have been talking about the US and China and traditional geopolitics. What I was saying is that increasingly the world is moving beyond geopolitics, and that the most important new global leaders aren't countries. They're technology companies that are writing their own rules. I was looking how the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that war started not on the 24th of February, but the 23rd of February, when Microsoft found out about all of the cyber strikes that were hitting Ukraine and made the US government and the Ukrainian government aware of it. I look at Elon Musk and providing Starlink. If it wasn't for that, I'm not sure that the Ukrainian government was going to be able to fight these guys on the ground. They wouldn't have been able to communicate. Zelensky might be gone. These were companies. The US government at that point was scared about sending all the military support, but the companies were making a big difference. Now I see that these new AI tools, like we saw with Anthropic and Mythos.
For anyone that doesn't know, Anthropic released a new AI model, which they say is so capable that it presents the world with a really fundamental security risk to all of our technology. They say in their report that in testing, this new model, this new type of AI could find security vulnerabilities in lots of different applications and software applications that we use. So essentially, it posed a cybersecurity risk. It could hack a lot of banks and
critical infrastructure, your power grid, water systems, anything with software. And not just like the things that a hacker could get to, but every bug that could be exploited. So it's so powerful that they couldn't release it because it would have been an immediate systemic risk to the global economy and our security.
And do you believe them? I say this because I heard some people debating whether this was marketing talk for them as a company to say, look how powerful we are, that we're not going to release this model because it's going to cause that much harm. Or do you think they are being responsible?
It is inconceivable to me that a company that is this capable of raising money and this capable of talking to the markets is not going to have a communication strategy that is fully aligned with that. So of course there's marketing here, but this was a real risk. When you have Jerome Powell, the chief of the Fed, and Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury, looking at this and immediately calling an urgent meeting of all the CEOs of the banks saying, we have to deploy this internally. And you have JP Morgan. Jamie Dimon is by far the best at cybersecurity in terms of the big banks and the big US institutions. And he considers this a 5-alarm fire. I take this very seriously. I think this is actually a big deal that also happens to be useful for Anthropic's marketing, not least because Anthropic had just been in a big fight with the Defense Department. And the US Defense Department saying, we don't want these Anthropic guys because they're woke, right? I mean, they refuse to let us use and deploy their AI in our targeting or our surveillance. So we're going to take them out of our system. Well, it turns out you can't afford to take these guys completely out of your system because what they're doing is too important for American national security. So the timing is convenient from that perspective. But this risk is real. And it's real because it needs to be deployed immediately to find these bugs and to patch them before other people have those tools, because other people will have these tools in very short order.
And so on the scale of risks that we have in front of us here, critical, severe?
Yep, also severe.
Okay.
Again, would be critical if we were talking about 2 years out, because we're talking about this year and it's already April, it just happened. I would say severe, but my God, underappreciated. Because the amount of attention this gets on headlines compared to Iran or Venezuela, compared to China, is still tiny.
And is that because of unemployment, because AI is going to take our jobs, or is it something else? Is it the nuclear, what is it?
No, I mean, if what I just mentioned with Anthropic, like if suddenly your systems are hackable by anyone that has access to this tool, your markets are going to go down. Your banks aren't going to work. Your data is going to be stolen. You know, imagine if the Russians had that capacity, what they would do with it. If the Iranians today had that capacity, what they would do with it. They will. These AI tools are becoming available to anyone with a laptop or a cell phone. So, I mean, suddenly, in the same way that the war in Russia-Ukraine, Russia's much bigger than Ukraine. And yet in the last 3 months, Ukraine has actually taken territory back from Russia. How is that possible? Technology, drones, right? Mm-hmm. They have become the most capable drone producer in the world at scale. So much that when the Iranians were attacked by the United States and they counter-hit, what did the Americans do? They called Zelensky, remember the guy that didn't say thank you in the White House, and they said, could we have your help with your drone technologies in figuring out how we combat Iran for our Gulf allies? So technology is changing the world so fast. And it turns out that the biggest way it's changing our security and the economy is AI.
On this point of AI, I actually was watching a video this morning before you arrived, which I thought I'd show you because it's quite dystopian, but what you'll see in this video is true and it's happening around the world. And I don't think anybody has any ideas. This is the video. I'll play it for those of you that are looking at the screen at the moment. Can you tell what's going on in this video from watching it?
It looks to me like the work that they are doing is being monitored real time, presumably by some external source. You're going to suggest to me that the external source that's monitoring them is not a human being, but is artificial intelligence.
Yes, kind of. What's happening is a company has paid these Indian workers to wear cameras on their heads, to watch their hands, to train the AI so that the AI can do that job in the future.
To remove the workers from those jobs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like sitting on the branch of a tree and you yourself cutting there's this meme I'll throw up on the screen. It's of a guy sat on the branch of a tree and he's cutting the branch himself. And what you're seeing here is because the AI companies and the robotics companies need real world data of these jobs being done, they're now asking the workers in the factories to record themselves doing it so that they can replace them.
Yeah.
It's I laugh because it's slightly terrifying.
It's slightly terrifying, and yet it's also slightly empowering, depending on what we decide to do with the wealth that comes from this. Because let's face it, most human beings do not want that work to be what self-actualizes them.
What kind of political system do you need or social system do you need in such a world where a lot of the work that we do today is being done by these intelligent machines and a huge amount of people don't have work? I was saying to you before we started recording, a friend of mine called me the other day and he had a conversation with one of the most successful technologists in the world that everybody knows. And he said, next year is the year where the unemployment because of AI really will take hold and people are going to get increasingly annoyed. They also said that they think the Democrats, even though I think this person might be Republican, they think the Democrats are going to win the election because the impact of AI is going to be so severe next year in terms of unemployment that people are going to associate the Republicans with being the pro-AI party. And I saw another report last week saying that AI is now less popular than ICE in the United States. And just as a podcaster who has conversations about this, I know people are not happy. I know they're not happy. I see it in the comment section, in part because we don't see it flowing down and making people's lives better. We see major corporations getting richer.
And so the funny thing, that video you showed me, most people in the global South are very excited and enthusiastic about AI because they think it's going to give them tools to improve their human capital, to improve their opportunities. China, the Chinese are very excited about AI because they think that it's going to make their lives better. Mm-hmm. The Americans, the Europeans are not. They worry that this is actually going to undermine their jobs, particularly their white-collar jobs, their knowledge worker jobs. And what I think is going to happen politically, I don't agree that we're going to see massive unemployment in the US next year. I think there's going to be much more friction. And most CEOs don't want to get rid of a lot of their workers unless they have to. So unless there's a major economic downturn that gives them that excuse, I think it's going to take a lot longer. And I also think that social mobilization, longshoremen in the United States, like said, no AI, you're going to protect our jobs. And they were willing to actually demonstrate. They mobilized and it kept AI out. There'll be a lot of resistance that will slow this process down. But what I do think is going to happen, I think you'll see it politically. I was talking to someone I know reasonably well, a senator, U.S. senator, who was saying, can't talk right now right? And pro-technology person, pro-business person, centrist, right? Someone you and I would recognize as such. Say, I can't talk about data centers. I've never seen people, my constituents, so upset about an issue as they do about data centers.
AI data centers.
AI, they said that no jobs, energy prices going up, water prices going up, zoning looks horrible in their neighborhoods. They're growing like Topsy, huge amount of investment. Everyone hates these things. I mean, Trump in the United States won on the back of a lot of men who, many of whom had good jobs and were making good money, but they didn't necessarily have advanced degrees. And they felt like the world was moving away from them. They saw robotics and automation on their factory lines. They saw free trade and jobs going to much poorer, much less expensive labor around the world, China especially, but India, other countries. They said they saw immigrants coming in, but you're not taking care of me and my family, so why am I letting that happen? You see this in Europe too. This is the Nigel Farage movement, like lots of stuff, right? They voted Trump in, not once, but twice. Despite everything he is, everything he stands for, they voted for him. We haven't seen women with advanced degrees, urban and suburban, worried about their jobs and worried about their kids. And that wave of populism is coming absolutely in 2028. And that is, AI is a very big piece of that. AI, data centers, and the rest. So in that regard, I agree that there's going to be a real political wave here. And I don't yet know who the political figures are that are going to respond to that. I don't think that person today exists in the political spectrum. I haven't seen that person.
It appears that the least popular job or least popular people in society at the moment are AI CEOs. I mean, you're probably seeing what's going on.
Well, you saw what Sam Altman just had the Molotov cocktail that was actually thrown at his
and then yesterday
house.
Again, they said someone shot at his house yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday night again.
Yeah.
Which obviously nobody should support violence of this type.
My God, no. But it's not surprising. And we also had the CEO of United Healthcare gunned down, a year ago, just a few blocks from where you and I are having this conversation right now. There is general anger at the elite. And it's true that the wealthiest people in the United States right now happen to be those tech owners.
Is there a solution here where the technology, which presents us with tremendous potential upsides, can thrive and be successful and make our lives better, but also the average person, the working class people, can also capitalize and benefit from this technology?
Of course there is.
What does that look like?
Well, I mean, first of all, these technologies are already doing extraordinary things in improving productivity and in reducing waste. I mean, recycling doesn't work very well. But with AI, you can recycle in a way that would allow you to actually get that trash product back into a productive format. Who wouldn't want the ability to make micro adjustments in the way that an airplane is navigating real time because of AI that reduces fuel consumption by 10%? Or improve agricultural use. In Ethiopia, you've got over 100 million people and they don't know what to plant and where and when. Suddenly you optimize for that, they have cheaper food. Like these are amazing things. Every day, I see uses for these technologies in companies around the world that blow my mind. But I also see, and again, I focus on politics. And if we blow ourselves up, it's not going to be because of technology. If we blow ourselves up, it's going to be because of people and politics.
What do you mean by that?
That the system is deploying these technologies in inhumane ways. It's allowing the benefits of the opportunities to be captured by a small number of individuals, a small number of companies that write their own rules and don't care about people that are getting angry. So when you ask, violence is the wrong thing. But if you're seeing that people are getting so angry that they're starting to do things that they see the only way that they think that they can respond is outside of the legal framework. It's not by voting for somebody new, but it's by mass action or even violent action, then the politics are really broken.
So do we need like universal basic income or something, or does there need to be an AI tax? Or
I don't think that you go from everybody has a full-time job or aspires to a full-time job to universal basic income in a year. I don't think that happens. But I could easily see pilot programs that say, instead of a 5-day work week in the following areas that we think are going to be disrupted, it's going to be a 4-day work week or a 3-day work week. And we're going to pay you the same amount of money, But that additional day every week is going to be on AI training that will allow you to have a job, either be more effective in your existing job, because only the people that know how to deploy these tools are going to have a job in another 3 or 5 years, or will allow you to transition. But you've got to start spending the money on that now. And that guy that you had that conversation with, I've been watching him publicly. He's not part of the solution. He's saying, I think the Democrats are going to win. Oh, well, I'll be fine. I'm still worth a lot of money, but I'm not going to do anything to actually help facilitate this. Like if the people that are most capable of being aware of these challenges and of addressing them are instead all in winner take all mode, then obviously we're going to have a breakdown in society.